On Behind the News this week, growing violence in sport in Australia. What should be done about it? Giving junior sport a higher profile. And it's fast, it's furious, it's American, and it's already got thousands of young Australians hooked. Hi there, and welcome to this special sports edition of BTN. I'm Karen Percy. It's great to have your company. In recent weeks, sport has gone from the back pages of our newspapers to the front pages in stories like Lockett crushes stunned Swans and State squad rocked by injury. So are our major sports too dangerous, and should those in control be trying to make them safer? Verica Jokic finds out.
It's a game, it's not for wimps, as they say.
So these guys use their whole body to hit each other. Yeah, I like to see that.
These guys can catch a ball from 12 feet in the air. I like to see that.
Oh, what a knock! These guys spit the dummy at the umpire and get away with it? I'd like to see that.
For the past year, Australia's football world has turned on a battle to see which football code is better, rugby or Australian rules. But the battles haven't stopped at television commercials. They've moved on to the footy ovals. Violence and injuries have always been a risk in sport, and hundreds are injured each week in professional matches and at schools. But incidents in the past few weeks have shown just how bad some of the violence and injuries can be. 2 weeks ago, more than 50 rugby players in New South Wales were taken to hospital for treatment. A 16-year-old boy was one of them. Doctors believe he broke his back during a rugby league match. And 2 Victorian teenagers died playing Aussie rules, one from heart failure, the other after colliding with another player. And more recently, this happened.
Oh, Lockett!
St Kilda's Tony Lockett was suspended for 8 weeks after being found guilty of striking a Sydney Swans player in the head.
There's pretty strict penalties for people that, want to be violent anyway, so, if they do want to play violently, they've got to pay the price.
So how violent is sport?
I personally play a lot of sport, but I don't see too much violence in it myself.
Most of the violence and most of the injuries occur in men's sports, and football has one of the highest rates of injury.
And it's on for young and old as Van Dommel puts Motlop out.
Injuries in the under-18 teams are twice as high as in the senior and professional teams. In fact, in the junior teams, 1 player in every 15 suffers some sort of injury.
In club, it's more competitive and, people are out there to, play for the club, so they play as hard as they can.
Great tackle it was indeed from Gillespie.
The only reason you go out there to hurt anyone is basically to get an advantage for your team.
That's worried doctors who think it's time for a change. Time to make mouthguards and protective headgear compulsory.
Some people think that safety helmets are a bit stupid and stuff, but if everyone had to wear it, I wouldn't see much of a problem with it. If everyone wore it, it'd just be something that everyone would accept.
But the doctors' calls are not going down too well with some Aussie rules and rugby players. They think there's nothing wrong with a little violence.
Everybody knows it's a heavy contact sport, and to clean it up, you might as well just play touch football.
And what would the crowds think of that?
Well, people are there to see violence, aren't they?
That's prompted some parents to look at other sports for their kids. Sports like basketball. Even though basketball is considered to be safer than football, things can still go wrong.
Up north, it's not football violence that's making the news, it's the high level of competition. On the football-mad Tiwi Islands, just north of Darwin, there are 8 teams. Not bad from a population of just 3,000. And it's the Imaloo team which is dominating the sport, winning 12 premiership flags in 22 seasons. Tiwi Island footballer David Cantilla grabbed the nation's attention back in the 1950s when he went to play for South Adelaide. He led the way for today's greats like Essendon's Michael Long. Now, talent scouts keep an eye on the island in the hope of finding tomorrow's football stars.
Now, most kids play some sort of sport, and it's generally at school, perhaps in a gymnasium like this one. Now, if you're any good at sport, you'll get heaps of support and training. Many kids, though, miss out. But that could all change under a new national plan to give junior sport a higher profile.
In the past few years, Australia's primary schools have experienced a change. Sport in primary schools has taken a dive, with less time being spent on PE and on sport. For many kids these days, a walk home from school is the most exercise they'll get all day. And this is the result. Fewer kids are active, more are overweight. But why is there less sport in schools? Well, to keep up with the changing times, schools have had to change the subjects they teach. For example, more time is now spent on computers. That's meant less time for other subjects. And for many schools, it's meant less time for sport. But why sport? Well, governments have been giving less money to schools to do and buy things. And because sport or PE are expensive to teach, many schools have cut down on it. They can't afford to buy the sports equipment. And because there aren't enough qualified sports teachers, school sports can become short game sessions taken by teachers who aren't trained in PE. A few years ago, Western Australia had 30 qualified sports teachers in primary schools. Now it has 1 or 2. Queensland has none. So what do the kids think about all this?
I think there should be more school sports because they're fun and active and all.
You learn skills and how to cooperate and sportsmanship and stuff like that.
If you don't play much sport, you're going to end up sitting down watching television all your life.
Television, the drug of the nation, breeding ignorance and feeding radiation. TV.
Should there be more sport? Yeah.
Sports can be both fun and a good way of getting exercise. It can help kids feel better about themselves and teach them teamwork.
How important is sport? I couldn't live without it.
I think it's very important because you got to learn how to do sport just as much as you learn spelling and maths and stuff.
Well, it looks as though many people agree. The drop in standards of sport in schools has worried our politicians, teachers and sporting groups. So they got together to work out how to improve sport for kids. Their ideas are in the new National Junior Sport Policy. They suggest getting clubs and community groups to offer their sporting facilities to schools so more kids can play sport. And they want schools and clubs to work together so they offer more sports between them. The report also says schools and clubs right across Australia should aim to have the same goals: to encourage more sport and to get young people to play many different sports. They also want to get more girls playing sport because not as many girls play sport as boys.
I don't do any sport, I do dancing instead because I don't really enjoy it that much.
I don't play very much sport because I can't be bothered. I like watching television.
Of course, there are boys who don't like sports either.
gotta be joking. I don't play any sport.
Why?
Because I'm too busy doing stuff like drawing or something.
The National Junior Sport Policy is one push to get more kids into sport. Other help is coming from the Sports Search program. It wants to get more kids to play and enjoy sport and boost their sporting ability. Sports Search also aims to find and train 11 to 15-year-olds who might become future Olympic medal winners.
The winner is Sydney, Australia.
So with Sydney hosting the year 2000 Olympics, should schools be offering more sports now?
I think there should be more because for the year 2000 Olympics we could have more people to choose from.
The new National Junior Policy and programs like Sports Search might just help Australia win more medals and make many more kids a bit healthier.
Dozens of reporters gathered last week to find out who would take over from Alan Border as Australia's Test cricket captain.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's now my pleasure to welcome to the meeting the new Australian captain, Mark Taylor.
Mark Taylor, well played.
Taylor lost well.
Mark Taylor is 29, a powerful left-hand batsman. He was Alan Border's deputy for the past 2 years.
I think Alan's done a fantastic job, and hopefully I've learnt a little bit off him over the last few years, and hopefully I can use his ideas along with mine in making a good Australian cricket team.
Already Taylor is standing firm on one issue. He says poor behaviour on the field is definitely out. A sellout crowd watched the second netball test between Australia and New Zealand. New Zealand began brightly, taking an early lead. But Australia battled back, and at the final whistle, Australia was home by 47 to 44, giving them the second test and the series. Still overseas and in Europe, Australia's Michael Doohan has now won 3 motorcycle Grand Prix in a row. He beat American Kevin Schwantz in the Austrian Grand Prix by 12 seconds and now has a solid lead in the World Championship.
Now, one of the sports now dominating the sports scene is basketball. In fact, kids are turning off from traditional sports like rugby and cricket and turning on to basketball. And as well as importing the game itself from the United States, we've adopted much of the American-style hype as well, as Sally Heron discovered.
Years ago, basketball was a minor sport in Australia. Played in tin sheds by a handful of fans, it was a sport on the sidelines. Today, all that's changed. About 700,000 people now play basketball in Australia. More people play it than cricket or rugby. And the most popular athlete in the country isn't Alan Border, but Michael Jordan, an American basketball star who's never even set foot in Australia.
First of all, I like any sport with a ball in it.
And they just do heaps of good dunks and all that. Good athletes. Yeah, very good athletes.
But I like how it's really fast.
It's not boring to watch like golf or cricket.
You always get the ball, like in some sports you never get the ball.
Well, you play basketball because I love the game.
Sydney, let's make some noise in here.
Australia's National Basketball League, or NBL, began in 1979, playing to audiences of about 100. Today, thousands of fans fill stadiums across Australia.
Give me more.
And while more people still watch cricket and footy, it's clear that basketball is the sport of choice for today's kids.
It's to do with being cool, it's to do with being hip, wearing the right gear,
identifying with music, rap music in this case. All of those sorts of things I think are very important with basketball. So it's more than a game, you know, it's a whole lifestyle for a lot of kids.
Do you want me to shoot it? No! Do you want me to pass it? No! Do you want me to snap? Yeah!
The basketball craze hasn't just come about because people love the game. There's lots of hype and wealthy sponsors. Companies like Reebok, Coke, Pepsi and even Tip Top bakeries have realised the best way to sell a product is to put a basketball with it.
Don't even think about it.
And shops specialising in American sports gear are doing a roaring trade.
Well, for starters, you need the hat, tops. They're always the hats, the right label starter that they wear on the bench. They're looking around $30 for that. Just a t-shirt you can sweat in, or one of the plain tops. They can range from between about $30, $50. You need the baggy, comfortable pro shorts. Looking around $40 for those. And of course the shoes, most important part. Looks label, it's all important, it's all there. Between $150 and $250.
So how much would it come to all up?
Around $300 to $400.
What all this goes to show is that not only is basketball one of the fastest growing sports in Australia, but the money-making industry surrounding it has become just as huge. And at number one on the basketball shopping list, cards. Shops specialising in sports cards are springing up around Australia. So much so, it's now become a $40 million industry. The biggest group of customers by far are kids. Many of them prepared to spend whatever it takes to get the best collection.
Someone like Michael Jordan, of course, is always very popular. This one, a brand new one, is still $60. Or you can go right up to the older, harder to find cards of the really in-demand players. For now, Shaquille O'Neal, for example, this one's $400.
Many kids get the best deals at backyard swap meets.
How many have you got? About 1,000 or something. I've just got about 800 in my folder over there and about 300 in there, about that.
One worry about the basketball craze here is that American basketball is much more popular than Australian. But those caught up in the hype say that's not really a problem.
The NBL's getting a little bit more popular than it was earlier on a few years back because of basketball's influence from America into Australia.
If you got better players in here and bigger stadiums and everything, but America's a lot bigger than Australia, so
America's better than Australia.
So what's that?
Yes, it is.
Behind!
Hype may have tuned people into the game, but it's the fast action of the game itself that's keeping basketball on centre stage.
I just like how they're real good players, and like that ad, I want to be like Mike, that really inspired me, and I always sing it in class now.
If I could be like Mike, I'm gonna be like Mike. If I could be like Mike, be like Mike. If I could be like Mike.
Growing concern about the environment has seen another trend towards eco-sports like mountain biking. It's all about getting out and enjoying nature and getting fit at the same time. And it seems Australia has some of the best mountain biking tracks in the world. An American video team is completing a world tour of the best rides, including those in South Australia's spectacular Flinders Ranges.
In Costa Rica, we were riding on the crater of a volcano and also on the ocean floor.
As long as people go out in nature and enjoy nature, they're more apt to protect it and save it for the future generations.
The couple says mountain biking is the best way to become aware of the world's environment.
Now, have you ever wanted to organise a major event like a competition, or perhaps become a team coach? Well, there's a new program in Australian schools that's opened the door on a whole new world of sport behind the scenes. It's called CAPS, and it could soon be at a school near you.
There's nothing quite like scoring a goal or watching a favourite team win a match. But while all eyes are usually on players, another world is at work. Behind the scenes, many other people are busy making sure the games can go ahead. And while those sweating it out on the field deserve some of the glory, most agree those behind the scenes are just as important.
Being involved in playing the game is important, but no club or even the smallest of sporting competitions can exist without the behind-the-scenes work. So the sports administrators, sports trainers, all our coaches, umpires and referees are really vital.
Take it in turns, just wait till the goalie's saved it or...
These teenagers are part of a program which aims to give them a future in sport, which doesn't only mean playing a sport. It's called CAPS, Challenge, Achievement and Pathways in Sport. The idea is to take today's teenagers and turn them into tomorrow's sports leaders.
It gives you more chance of being a coach, and it's better for you because you get to mix with younger kids if you want to coach them later on in life.
One of the best things about CAPS is you don't have to be a sports star to be involved. All you need is to want to develop leadership qualities in areas like team management, coaching or sports medicine.
This one's to stretch your drive muscle here.
There are 7 areas you can get into under the CAPS program: sports health, administration, umpiring, coaching, event or team management, playing the sport, and sports fun, where you help younger kids play sport. People can join CAPS when they're 14. They then have to spend 70 to 100 hours working in the areas they want to specialise in. It sounds like a lot, but those involved in CAPS have got until they're 21 to do it. They can help out in a sports club, coach local teams, or organise special events.
So you say if you want 5 people in a team or you want 7 people in a team, you all talk about that and you decide yourselves.
For those who are keen, it can be used to start a career in sport.
It'll give me a base to work from, so if I go for a job I can say I've got my CAPS certificate.
If I feel that I want to go further, it could lead me to the national level of coaching, which I hope to get at one day.
CAPS isn't just aiming to give Australia a better future by training up sports workers. It's also trying to keep people interested in sport after they leave school.
They need to develop the skills early, they need to develop an attitude that will remain with them through their life. If we leave it too late, children are tending to drop out of sport and are not involved in any way, shape or form.
More and more kids are giving up sport when they leave school. CAPS organisers say the program is one way to change that, to keep kids involved in sport both on and off the field.
No one ever did anything like that with us when we were younger, and so it was just like the good people did sport and the other people just sat on the sidelines, and now everyone joins in.
And that's our BTN Sports Special. Our thanks to the Heights School in Adelaide for having us. BTN will be back to normal and back to the studio next week, complete with updates and, of course, PS with Verica. But from me, it's goodbye. It's my last program with you. I've had a great time bringing it to you. I hope you've enjoyed it too. Goodbye.